question, it can't wait another day. Don't feel like it's all in vain. I try to remember it ain't a race. Breathe out, it doesn't matter anyway. Breathe in, it's about happiness in the air. Take it slow, watch the road, stop driving myself insane.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to Dubbo's iconic landmark, the Exchange Clock Tower. I'm Rachel Viant, the Community and Business Development Manager here at the Exchange. For those not familiar with the Exchange, we are a social impact organisation providing the support and the space for brave regional businesses to embark on their professional journeys and to have the best chance at success across all stages of their organisation's development. We are also a community of people striving to reach our potential and supporting those around us to exceed with their potential. Within this community, we are so fortunate to have such a strong cohort of remarkable women at the helm of many successful local businesses and community projects. And so, on milestone days like International Women's Day, it is our truest honour to be able to celebrate these regional women. And to kick off today's celebration, we have had the greatest pleasure of opening our doors and welcoming to the Exchange the New South Wales Minister for Mental Health, Regional Youth and Women, the Honourable Bronnie Taylor. Guest speakers, Hannah Better, Krystaal Hinds and Julia Webber. The incredible team from the Sydney School of Entrepreneurship who have facilitated today. And of course, our wonderful community of courageous regional women and the champions of these women, both here in person in the Clock Tower today or tuning in virtually. One of these courageous women in particular that I'd now like to introduce is Tage Fowler. Tage is a proud Wiradjuri, Wurundjeri woman. Tage works for local not-for-profit organisation Lead a Life, whose mission is to grow the local community by helping kids doing it tough to live their best lives. Tage is currently studying a Bachelor of Community and Social Development for Indigenous communities, and today we are very fortunate that she is here to lead us in an acknowledgement of country to the traditional owners of these lands, past, present and emerging. Thank you, Tage, and welcome.
Righty, thanks. So, Yudu, Tage, Nadu, Banigu, Gubara, Wadri, Maingalang, Nagu, Nurumbanga, Ninya, Nangira, Darinya Gai, Mandangu, Wadaga Binyagu. Thank you so much for having me here today. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Wiradjuri people, pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging, and further that respect onto all First Nation people here present today. I just want to say that it's so beautiful to be here in this space and to celebrate women in regional areas and in Australia and across the world. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you for having me.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience as we took those photographs this morning, and thank you all very much for being here today at this event, which is, the screen's gone, but leading in times of change and challenge. This is a really important moment, and I welcome you all here today. Thank you. I'm Sarah Jones, CEO of the Sydney School of Entrepreneurship, SSE. I too would also like to acknowledge and pay respects to the Tabaga people of the Wiradjuri Nation and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging, and any elder that may be with us today. Thank you for accepting us to country. It is a great honour to be here today. And Tage, my apologies. Thank you for that very wonderful opening. That was very generous, and delighted to have you speak in language that was really important. And for the work that you do in supporting community and really working with young people around their challenges as they try to navigate some of the difficulties in working in today's very difficult times. So it's fitting that the theme of today's International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge, because we will shortly hear from 4 distinguished panellists about how they every day overcome challenges, how they embrace challenge to really try to affect change for good. The Honourable Minister, Bronnie Taylor, Julia Webber, Hannah Beeder, and of course Krystaal Hinds. They've come from across the state to be with us today and really talk about how we can shift the discourse and how we can lead in these times and create a new way forward. It's going to be a really interesting discussion, and so I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. And so today is International Women's Day and the first day of Women's Week. And absolutely thrilled to be here in Dubbo at the Exchange and celebrate these important markers with some of our most impassioned colleagues, Jill Kilby and the team at the Exchange, who do such fantastic work for the local community and really in supporting economic advancement for women. And so thank you to everyone at the Exchange, and very much in terms of working with partners to create that culture of opportunity and advancement as we do at SSE. And I think creating cultures in which women of all demographics, all backgrounds, LGBTIQ women from all groups feel safe, are safe, and feel valued and genuinely respected as equals is everybody's responsibility. And I think it's on all of us to lead as role models in modeling those behaviors that's going to help us create that cultural change that we so badly need today. I think we've all been quite saddened and distressed by some of the recent and highly publicized cases of assault and abuse and discrimination that have been publicized lately. I think while these are not new cases, I think for us, this is a moment where the fact that we are talking about it, that we are challenging the matters with such vigorous, fierce debate and discussion suggests that we're all working to effect change. That we're talking with such passion because we want to do better, that we can indeed do better, and that this is a watershed moment in confronting and remedying some historical inequalities, inequities, and cultural toxicity. At SSE, we are very committed to advancing and supporting women in all aspects of life, in gender equality and gender diversity. We strive every day to make an impact on the world around us through our programs, our action, our collaborative connections, our genuine partnerships, and by the work we do to empower each other to do better, to be better, and to really challenge the status quo. And I think I can't pass this moment without acknowledging my phenomenal team at SSE, two of whom are with us today, Emily Chang and Nada Van Kempen, and the team in Sydney who every day choose to challenge. I'm very proud of our team and what we do. But without further ado, I would like to begin proceedings and warmly welcome the Honourable Minister Bronnie Taylor, who has a very illustrious career as Minister for Mental Health, Rural Youth and Women, and of course your work as a registered nurse in palliative care and cancer care. But we are absolutely thrilled to welcome you and hear from you today on such a momentous occasion. Minister, welcome. Thank you.
Can you all hear me? I'm pretty loud.
We're streaming.
Oh, you're streaming, sorry. Shows what an IT dinosaur I am, right? But look, thank you very much for having me. It's just an absolute delight to be here today. I love Dubbo. I love coming to Dubbo. I love coming to the Exchange. And I think it's really amazing with the history and being able to stand here. And although I wasn't here for the reno, I felt I was part of it thanks to social media and Gillian's prolific posting, which is what I love. One of the things I love about social media is that you feel that you can be part of it. But I think with the year that we've just had, to think that you had this vision well before COVID's actually accentuated the fact that we can do anything no matter where we live. And I think this is particularly exciting for women. So on International Women's Day, I got to fly into Dubbo with 2 female pilots. How cool is that? And the plane was called Jindabyne, and I'm from Cooma. So I think it's going to be a great week because those things must mean something, right? But I think that, I love being the Minister for Women. It is such a privilege for me. I think that There is so much to be proud of. There is so much to be excited about. And there is such an enormous future. I think when we talk about women, we also have to acknowledge the fact that we need everybody to be part of this journey and be part of this walk. And it's great to be here with you today, Dougal, who has become a very good friend in Parliament and a great champion and supporter of women. I had a particularly bad week at Parliament the other day, and it was really nice to know that you had friends there that had your back. And I think that's what's really important as well. I think as women, if we stick together, if we gather together, and if we're really united on the same path and the same issues that are important to all of us, we really can achieve anything. But we have to do that. And look, I am as well, as you did before me, acknowledge the issues of the last couple of weeks. It's really distressing and it's really disappointing that in 2021 we are having to have these sorts of conversations. But I'll keep it really simple, which is what I like to do. And the fact is that there are people out there that have been courageous and strong enough to step up and tell their story. One of the most powerful things we can do is tell our stories. And it's wonderful that the Dubbo Woman of the Year is a journalist this year, because her sole mission is that she needs to tell people's stories. We actually do need to rely on the media to tell our stories. That's not an easy thing for a politician to say, because often the stories perhaps aren't researched and done in the way that is fair to the story. But we must acknowledge that there are people that have stood up and have talked about some really difficult issues. We must continue to have those conversations. We must continue to stick together, and we must continue to choose to challenge. Because there are so many that have come before us that have just forged an incredible path to give us all the opportunities that we have. We need to take those opportunities. We need to be respectful when we do. But all of us, regardless of your age, regardless if you're someone that's had the most enormous success internationally through your school and through doing your ethics competition, can I say, whatever that was that you did so amazingly well in. And you're young, right? But it is your responsibility now to make sure that those that come after you also are supported by you. You wrap your arm around them and you tell them, you can do this because I did it and I can. And that is one of the most powerful things that we can do. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm reluctant to keep talking because I love to talk. Those that know me, Dougal's hardly holding himself. But let's get the panel, because these guys are just fantastic women and it's really great to be reunited with some of them. So can we do that? Can we start the panel and then I'll stop talking? Yeah, okay. But thank you very much and happy International Women's Day and Week, everyone. Can we share? And okay. Yeah, I don't have over 230 days in rural and regional New South Wales, no COVID.
Brilliant. Welcome. Good stuff. Yeah. We will have to do a little bit of passing of the mic, but that's all right. Yeah. Minister Taylor, is it okay?
You call me Bronnie, please.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Once someone thought I was a minister of religion, which was very complimentary, but yeah.
Good stuff. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Emily Chang, Director of Entrepreneurship at SSE. Phenomenal time to be here, and I'm really excited to kick off the panel discussion as we hear stories, learnings of four amazing women who have been challenging, who have been contributing to the current state and leading in times of change. So I'd like to do a brief introduction to the three panellists. I know we've done a quick intro to Ms. Taylor, so I'll kind of acknowledge that. But I'd love to start by saying welcome Hannah Vida, who was the winner for the 2020 Young Women of the Year. As a computer scientist, she's really paving the way to help more young women see STEM career as a viable choice. So we're going to hear lots more around that. And we've got Krystaal Hinds, who is 2020 Regional Women of the Year, taking a leadership role in a male-dominant kind of culture in an organisation, but also proactive, a volunteer and great contributor to her community. So we'll hear a lot more about that. And also Julia Weber, who just reading your background, I mean, you've been starting to kind of champion change, champion kind of positive good from really early age, but now you're focused on supporting young Australians to develop financial literacy. So we'll hear a lot more around that. All right, so that's a bit of a context. Love to begin by actually asking Hannah to start. We'd love to start by hearing a bit about their origin stories. How did they get started? Why do you choose to do the work that you do? So let's kick us off with Hannah.
Sure. I'll get you to introduce me every time I have to do something. That was very nice of you. My background began in a computer science degree at NSW. Very male-dominated industry. I'd gone to a co-ed school. I was, not expecting anything too different, and then I got there and then there weren't very many women at all. Spent 5 years there studying computer science. I did an honours thesis in human-computer interaction, where I delved for the first time into some interdisciplinary study. So I was looking at instructional design, I was looking at music, I was looking at neuroscience and computer science all in one go. So for the first time I felt quite recognised in my own diverse interests. And from there I went on to have a number of internships with Google, both in Sydney and overseas. I worked with a small AI startup, and then I took a job as a software engineer with Macquarie Bank after I finished. But now I've pivoted into tech education, which I guess isn't so much of a pivot. It's something I've done alongside my study, alongside my work the whole time, and it's what's brought me joy throughout my entire career. So at the moment I'm working with a company called Creatable, and we teach young women the skills they need to succeed in the future. So we teach a creative technology syllabus. I do a lot of educational program development, both in Australia and abroad, and basically giving young people the tools they need to change the world, to solve local problems with local solutions, to remove the fear and stigma and anxiety around tech and coding and robotics, and following my own intuition down the rabbit hole, creating interesting creative technology programs. So that's my context, and I love what I do. Probably when you hear it, you're like, that sounds really rewarding. It is actually. It is really rewarding, especially in comparison to sitting coding all day every day, and I think that is great for some, but I always had this tension in me. I knew it wasn't for me. So to actually sit in what I know I love doing and choose to do that every day is really fantastic.
Thank you. Krystaal, if I invite... Yeah. You chose the middle seat.
They've done me first. My story is probably just the same as many of you in this room. It's definitely nothing like that. My background's in forestry. I grew up in a single-parent household with my father and two sisters. So my whole life has been outdoors because that's where Dad sent us. I'm not shaking because I'm nervous. I'm shaking because my legs don't reach the step. I live in a small community, 500 people, give or take. I've had 3 kids, left forestry to have my 3 darling children, and started working in the business that my husband and myself have grown, and active volunteer within my community. So the same as most of you probably, show society at some stage, community engagement, but my big one is the Rural Fire Service. So I've been in the RFS for 22 years. I've been captain of my brigade for 7 of those, and I've been a deputy group officer for the last 3. And my passion has probably come about through more necessity, and the fact that I'm still the only female out of 63 captains in my zone. I'm the only deputy group officer in mine and the neighbouring 2 districts that I know of. And we need to be able to encourage women into those roles because they're more than capable of doing it. So we're trying to just overcome the hurdles of why they're there and why we've got these wonderful young women missing out on these amazing leadership and growth opportunities and giving back to our community. So... I don't know the exact stat that was put into the thing, but my focus has been about getting females into the brigade. So I think we've increased female, it's not just me, it's the whole team together, but by around 30% or so in my brigade. So, and purely that's just monkey see, monkey do. Women can't do things if they don't see women in those roles, and I think that's probably the biggest issue that we face in regional New South Wales. Your turn.
Gosh, you think it was tough going second, try going third. Thank you very much for having me. It's such a delight to be sitting in this chair. my advocacy work, I suppose, started out of adversity a bit. When I grew up with the internet, we both were coming of age at the same time and both trying to figure out who we were. And it reached its adolescence as I reached my adolescence, and we had a big falling out. And I was very horrifically cyberbullied, to the point where I didn't feel like I was worth the air I was breathing. It was really horrific. I was around 13 years of age, because the bullying came into my bedroom. You know, I couldn't come home from school and leave it. It was there. It was following me. So once I, scraped myself off the floor, and my family had a big role to play in that, I decided I didn't want my best friend to go through that. I didn't want my little cousins coming through school to go through that. I didn't want anyone to go through that. So I wrote a self-help book for teenage girls who were experiencing bullying. And the key to that was resilience and teaching self-care. And, why don't you put yourself first for a second, and that way, things will just bounce off you. And that was the most incredible experience. And I did a lot of advocacy work through my teenage years. And then as I left home and went to uni at 18, my passion for advocacy was still there. But of course, your frames of reference change. And as I was leaving home and starting, full-time work in a real job, I realised I didn't have a clue how to file a bloody tax return, or write a budget or anything like that. And I found that really frustrating, because I had all these skills from my HSC, but no real world backing for my financial future. So that lit another fire, and I moved into a business and commerce degree at the University of Newcastle. And I wrote financial literacy content to teach young people the basics of financial literacy, and go into high schools to teach that content. And I'm just trying to get as many people across that line, and how to log into their ATO and just fill in all those confusing boxes. That's pretty much what I live for now. So yeah, that's how I started, and I guess the passion for advocacy just comes through. It doesn't matter what issue you're passionate about, because you evolve as a person, and the issues that matter to. It's not that bullying doesn't matter to me now, but it's what's right in front of you, and the passion that you can bring to that. So that's my beginnings.
Bronnie, would you like to sort of share a little bit about why you do the work that you do?
Sure. That was amazing, you guys. That was really fantastic. I'm just ticking, thinking. Look, I grew up overseas. My dad worked for Qantas. We moved around a lot. I met someone I really adored. I'm really boring. I married my Year 12 formal partner, and then we moved to the country. And Duncan said that he said to me one day, we'd been going out for a long time, and he said, I really want to, move to the farm. I want to work for myself. He was a lawyer, so like my life sort of I thought was going to be really different to what it is. But anyway, we moved out to the farm. I wasn't that great on the farm. I went to work right away as a nurse. And the thing that struck me was the difference that my patients received in terms of care as to the patients I'd nursed in Sydney, and I felt it was really unfair and it was really wrong. And I really struggled with the fact that women would choose to have radical surgery for breast cancers, have a radical mastectomy rather than have breast-conserving surgery, because I knew that they could, and I knew that was a better outcome for them, but they chose not to because they were too far away. So I didn't spend my life wanting to be a politician. There's lots of people like that, by the way, that have spent their whole life wanting to be a politician. But like you guys, it's advocacy, right? So I advocated for my patients, and then it's a long story, and we got a local oncology clinic up and running, and then someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, did you want to go into politics? I laughed. I thought, how ridiculous. Of course I don't want to go into politics. And then how you just think, oh, maybe I do. And she kept following me up. It was another woman. And here I am, able to do these things. But I'm not anyone, I listen to you guys, and I think that's amazing. And you mustn't undersell yourself like that, Krystaal. You're freaking amazing. She's a New South Wales Regional Woman of the Year from last year, Krystaal Hinds. So, yeah. And so I think, again, that's what we said. It's all about opportunities that present themselves. It's not necessarily that you go out and you think, I'm going to do this and do that so that this opportunity goes. It's if something presents, like it did for you, you turned a really terrible situation into something absolutely phenomenal. So that's just me, and you get to do that in rural and regional New South Wales. You get heaps of opportunities to do amazing things.
Yeah, I'd just love to pick up on that, because I think something that kind of was common through all your stories was there was a moment, there was a conversation, there was a person that, they made that choice to say, hey, actually, I can see a little spark in you. I can see that you might be going into somewhere that's going to have positive contribution, and let me help you. Let me maybe open a door for you, maybe make a connection for you. So, yeah, maybe Krystaal, if I can invite you to kind of jump in and share a little bit more, particularly in your experience. Was there a moment, was there a person that kind of, sort of opened a little door or had that conversation with you? Kind of like Bronnie said, hey, you mustn't undersell yourself. This is a contribution that you can make. Can you share a bit of a story around that?
Sure. So my biggest supporter my entire life has probably been my dad, even though we butt heads because we are very, very similar. He was always, you three girls can do anything. You can't do everything, but you can do anything. So, make your mind up. My passion for leadership and growth in the RFS probably came from the fact that my husband was burnt in a bushfire in 2013, and I had sent him instead of going myself because we had 3 young kids at home. And from that incident, I realised that I could see that things could be done better, and I could see that I had the skill set to do it, and I could see that nobody else was. So I had to make a decision at that point as to whether I was going to step up and put myself out there, which I'm not a big fan of, and try and make those changes, or whether I was going to step away and let it carry on the way that it was. So I stepped up. I've got a young daughter myself, and I thought, she was 6 weeks old at the time, what will she think of me when this defining point in our moment, and I let it pass us by? So I stepped up. I think my biggest challenge has probably been that there has been no one there to say, yes, you're on the right track, or no, you're not. It's been a lot of trial and error. I push this door, it shuts, push that door, it opens, so I'll go that way. It probably hasn't been as defined as a lot of people's other path. It's been pretty much trial and error the whole way. But through that journey, I realised that I think a lot of the challenges that I'm facing is because I was female, because there hasn't been someone else in that position for me to go to and say, how did you deal with that? So my challenge is to make sure that I'm that person for those that are coming up.
Yeah, amazing. And I can maybe make that thread, Hannah, for you. You are currently delivering, training, education into schools right now. How do you see it? You kind of potentially could play that role of somebody in the classroom picking up a spark in a young woman in the classroom. What's your experience to date?
It's so fun to work with young people. If anybody here has done that, I think you'll always walk away. Either you'll walk away being like, God, I'm tired, or you'll be like, that was so much fun, because young people are so invigorated and so excited, and so their imagination is very broad, and it hasn't been reined in, I suppose, in the way that sometimes we see real obstacles, but they haven't experienced them just yet. So it's like, oh, you really can dream that big and you can make it happen. So it's always been an incredibly fulfilling thing to do. As far as being a role model goes, I know that there's, maybe like Krystaal, it's very hard to admit that that's the case, to say maybe I'm the right person for the job. But I did face a lot of, adversity when I was trying to, as I say, fit a square peg into a round hole, doing what I was doing, doing what I was trained to do, and having a passion for the inequality that you see while you're doing it. As Bronnie mentioned, you're working as a nurse, you see there's inequality in the healthcare, now you care about the inequality in the healthcare. And so I always had these two adjacent competing interests, which was doing my job and then advocating for other women who wanted to have roles in that industry. But there was a very, caustic vibe around that, because it starts eroding your reputation as somebody that does the thing. Instead, you're somebody that talks about it or advocates for other people doing it. So it can be quite a tightrope to walk, being like, yes, I know how to do my job, and I'm also advocating for other people, because unless you're in that role, you sort of just sit and do your job, right? So to have a lot of people interested in what I do, because tech is quite a hot button topic at the moment. Women in tech is quite a up-and-coming thing, and tech itself is a very lucrative and entrepreneurial career to have. There's a lot of interest, but not a lot of support. So I found as soon as I was able to step into an environment that actually lived that, instead of talking to the point, they were actually living that as what I do. I felt a lot more comfortable and like I was able to enact a lot more change there. So to work with the girls I work with, the things they come up with just boggle the mind. And I, you know, they might not know I'm one step ahead of them and that's it. Because if I'd done what they were doing at that age, who knows where I'd be now. So it just makes me really, really hopeful for the future, seeing them have these incredible ideas, learn the skills to enact them, and then decide whether or not that's for them. Because with tech, it's almost like you got this ship, you think, you don't know it's there, but then you've missed it, right? You missed the boat. You didn't know there was a boat, but you missed it. So now I'm like, here's a boat, you might want to get on. They're like, let me see if I want to get on that boat. And some choose to and some don't, and that's fine. I just want them to have the option. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Julia, last night we were having Indian. You were talking about a story around the one of the internships you started at the accounting firm, and you kind of, you know, recognize that, hey, there's no activities or events that really celebrated women in the workplace. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think there's a connection around, you know, the opportunities where if you see an opportunity, you go, actually, I could do something in that space, but I needed somebody else to support me, or I needed to pluck up the courage to say, hey, I think we could do something around here. Could you want to sort of dive in and share a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's funny because that story came to my mind as well as these guys were talking, because I started at an accounting firm while I was at uni to get some accounting, real life sort of skills, and walked in and there was only one female partner there and the rest were male, which immediately, it's funny, I had all this optimism for that role, but immediately I went, I'm not going to get very far here. You know, you put that, it was like, there's the barrier right there. I'd started there in a mid-January, and then International Women's Day was coming up, which is always early March. And I just went, what are we doing? There's no emails around. Where's the morning tea? You know, what's going on? I want a cupcake, you know. And so I went to the managing partner and I said, look, I really look up to this female partner that's here. Her name's Jennifer Leslie, amazing. I would really love to interview her. Can I invite whoever wants to come and whoever's free to come into the boardroom, and I'm going to interview her. And which I'd been working there for like 6 weeks and he'd never seen me before and was sort of like, oh, all right, take the lunch break, you know, I don't care. No, he was really supportive. And so I did that interview, and ever since then, International Women's Day has been one of my favourite days of the year. I actually would put my birthday, International Women's Day, Christmas. That's where I'm at, because, and I know that's not tokenistic. It's about the fact that it's this one day of the year where we're creating that opportunity, where we're creating the pedestal for that role model that we were so desperately craving. Because you do the rest of the year, you feel like you're wading through this, you know, marsh, and there's alligators, and there's, you know, and you feel like, what am I doing? You know, where's the boat? Let's continue that metaphor. And so International Women's Day, there's the lighthouse, there's the beacon. And every year it just sort of reinvigorates me. And then by January, I'm jaded again. And then finally March is here and we can have International Women's Day. So I forget what your question was.
Swimming to the March shore. Brilliant. I want to pick up on that one because I think, this is International Women's Day is always a great opportunity for us to celebrate what has been achieved, but also recognise that there are still a way to go. We still have many barriers. We still have many, gaps that we need to fill. Bronnie, if I can invite you to sort of comment on this one, which is, what do you see as your superpower that helps you, that kind of drives you, motivates you through the many blockers, barriers that you're facing and you're kind of leading?
I think, just picking up on the metaphors, get on the boat. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I try and climb on every frigging boat that's leaving the station, and sometimes I end up being pulled 16 different ways. But I just think that, we have to step up. We have to be in the conversation, and we can't keep waiting. We can't wait. I mean, look, research really clearly demonstrates that when you look at job applications, women tend to sort of think, oh, look, I better just do that extra course before I apply, or I better actually make sure that I do this because I'm not quite there. Like just leave that and have a crack and put your hand up. I remember a million years ago when I finished nursing, I was actually in that cohort that there were no jobs in nursing. And I know that sounds ludicrous, right? There was seriously 1 year in the last 38 that it's happened, and that was the year that I graduated. And I couldn't get a job, and I was so disappointed. So I just rang Sister Club at Central Coast Area Health Service every week. And I said, Sister Club, it's Bronnie Washington, that was my maiden name again, and I really, really want that job because I wasn't going to cut it for the top 10 in the academic transcript, just being very transparent and honest. But I kept persisting, and I kept ringing Sister Club, and I drove her nuts. And I got a job as soon as someone dropped off there, right? So I just think that is maybe my superpower. I really love people, and I love people's stories, and I love chatting, and I love hearing people's conversations. So for me, I think being interested in people and encouraging people, and I meet people like Krystaal, and I read about all of you on paper, and I'm just so blown away. And I just think, here I am in a position where I'm lucky enough to be able to choose these winners who have done far more than what I think I have done. But I think sometimes that's what we've got to turn around as women. Like, I sit here and I think, friggin' say it, Krystaal, because you're amazing, but it's my job to make sure that she knows that and that we do that everywhere we go. And I think that's what we have to keep doing. And look, there are challenges, but there's challenges for everyone. And I'm sort of someone too, I'm a bit of a glass half full. I want to actually concentrate on the opportunities, and I listen to you guys and I listen to what you're saying about International Women's Day, and I think we're in really safe hands, but we just have to keep pushing through. And as you said, sometimes the door shuts for me all the time, but I'm sure it shuts too, when you would know, Dukes, like you're constantly trying to get things for your community, and you're told you can't do this, you can't do that. I don't care what door shuts, look for the open one like you did and keep going. And that's what we have to keep going, and we have to keep talking about, because there are great things. In the public service and the Department of Community and Justice, over 65% of the senior positions are held by women. Now, do we go and do you see that in the paper every day or that talked about? No. Meriton is actually recognised internationally as having the best gender equity, internationally. I don't see a story being written up about that anywhere. I don't see those people being praised, but I see that as my role. And we need to start talking that up, because we're doing great things, but we need to be out there and we need to tell our stories. And I'm quite worked up now.
And excellent. It means I'm doing a good job, hopefully. And I'd love to kind of then invite the other three panelists to also share a little bit more about what do you see as your superpower, and how do you kind of persevere through some of the barriers, and potentially thinking about the audience in this room, but also everyone that's tuning in. What would be a piece of advice that you would offer them, or a piece of practical kind of tip to go, yep, if I can do this, here's something that you might be able to try it on. So maybe, Julia, if I invite you to kind of share a bit about that.
Yeah, I think my superpower is it's actually one of my greatest weaknesses as well. It's funny how they can sometimes do that. I'm incredibly empathetic, and to the point where you're like, those Qantas ads where they're flying home? I'm tearing up thinking about it. Like, I can watch a commercial and I'm in tears, because I'm going, what a touching time for that family, and it is absolutely, it's a fictional family, I know. But when I look at a person and start a conversation with them, I try to bring out their vulnerability and their authentic self immediately, and make them feel comfortable in that space, and try to be empathetic, and let it flow through me, if that makes sense, because I think sometimes you can just keep taking it on, and that can lead to all sorts of mental health strive for yourself. And I think it's a pretty common story for empathetic people. You can really get bogged down because you are feeling so strongly and trying to, relate to others so strongly. But I think the empathy then, that's what spurs the advocacy, because I just want to help these people with a toolkit to build resilience, whether it's in that financial space, whether it's in that bullying space. How can I make your life better? And that's just what I keep asking myself. That's the subtext in every question that I ask someone when I'm discussing something with them. What do you do? Which is, AKA, what are you passionate about? I'm reading, do you like your job? Do you not like your job? What makes that light in your eyes come forward? And I think that I can make people feel heard in that way. And sometimes people just need to feel heard in order to have the confidence to take a step themselves. So, empathy.
I'm thinking about the Qantas plane. What was the question?
Yeah. So, Krystaal, what do you see as your superpower that you draw on when times get a bit tough? But also, what is a kind of a practical tip or a kind of advice that you would share with the group around how you might be able to draw on a superpower like the ones that you have?
I think my red hair is my superpower because the temper does go with the hair colour. So I have a mantra: not my circus, not my monkeys. So your problem is your problem. It's not my problem. So I don't take other people's problems on board and make them my own. To a certain problems about me. I help other people with their problems. I just don't take other people's issues with me on board. That's their circus, that's their monkeys to deal with. And you've got to have somebody in your corner. You've got to. I don't, Bronnie, you're probably the same. You can't do it on your own. If my husband wasn't at home for me to come home and rant at, not even with, for a good hour, he'll just sit there and take it. And at the end he'll say, what do you want me to do? Oh, nothing. There's nothing for you to fix here. I just need to get it out of my system. So you need to have that sounding board and develop those relationships. But the other part of it is just to be authentic. You've got to be yourself because you won't get far trying to be somebody else. I've tried it. Doesn't work.
I think that my superpower, it touches on something Julia said. When you can make somebody feel heard, then they can take a step towards something they might be scared of or haven't tried before. A teacher of mine in high school, actually, I've been clearing out some stuff in my room and I found a little card that she'd written, which is, nearly 10 years ago now, saying, you have the power to make people trust you. And I'm like, how did you know that though? Because I feel like I was a different person back then, but maybe that thread has remained because that's what I pride myself in being, is like a trustworthy person and a safe person, especially when people are trying new things. Because there's a big leap of courage when you try something new, especially when systemically and internally you might feel there are pressures that stop you from trying something new. And my piece of advice, I guess, is that I've seen that where you sort of reach a point or reach an age where you stop trying new things. Because you're like, no, but I'm the person that does this, or I'm the person that does that. I'm not the person that, plays tennis, or I'm not the person that, plays pool with my friends, or whatever it is. You're like, no, I can't do that because that's not who I am. And I think if we identify too strongly with the hobbies and passions and pursuits, it stops us from being open to new opportunities. And those times where I have tried something new, despite my own fear, is the most rewarding thing. So on one hand, I like to be that for others, and then I like to practice it myself. And again, working with students and kids, like, they call bullshit on your stuff. So if you're like, oh, try something new, they're like, yeah, but what have you done? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, good question. Okay, so then you got to practice what you preach as well. So yeah, don't feel scared to try new things.
Excellent, good stuff. We're just going to take a pause and thank you so much, Minister Taylor, for joining us. We know that you have a really busy schedule, especially for Women's Week, with many other activities to go. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on part of this panel. We'll continue the discussion shortly.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Sometimes I stick my finger into my dress and I fall over. It's really glamorous.
I'm glad you do that too.
Yeah, it's so nice. Well done.
That's a quote of the day. Excellent. Good stuff. All right. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're actually going to talk a little bit more about, we've kind of shared a little bit of each of your kind of origin stories, what made you choose to do the work that you do, invest your time and energy in this space. And then we've dived in a little bit about some of the things, some of the maybe personal traits, some of the support networks that you've built up to help you push through and continue to lead through change. We'd love to get you to now think back and think about, was there anything that you, now that you know and you've learned, along this way and along the journey, if you look back in time, was there anything that you've done differently, knowing what you know now? And whoever wants to go in, jump in first.
I was just saying last night at dinner that even if there were things that didn't sit right or didn't feel good at the time, every opportunity I've had has come from being in a certain place at a certain time. So if I was to say, yeah, I'd nitpick that one out, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So somebody once said to me, if you love what you do, then you got to respect the path that got you there. So I don't know that I would do anything differently because I don't know where I'd be now if I had.
I think, so my lessons learnt before probably come from the things that I would have changed when I was younger. Not listening to the naysayers, not picking very wisely whose counsel I took earlier on. I don't think it would change much, but maybe I'd be a little bit further ahead and I'd have a little bit of a clearer path about where I'm going. But the be genuine, the be authentic. I tried very hard to imitate somebody else's leadership style because that worked for them and I saw that working for them. And even though I didn't like that person and I didn't like the way they led, I thought, well, they've got followers, so that must work. And it didn't, and it doesn't. And my leadership developed when I was true to myself, when I was actually honest with myself about what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I picked the people around me to fill in the gaps for the stuff that I'm not good at, that they're really good at. And I'm myself. And I'm happy with that.
I was driving through a national park at the end of last year, and I was looking at all of the amazing trees in the one. Well, it wasn't fire affected, but even the ones in the fire affected areas, just these, towering, beautiful providers of shade and food and habitat, and then next to them, I'm not sure if you've ever looked for baby trees. I know that sounds weird, but they just look like twigs sticking out of the ground. It's really strange, like a branch has fallen and just sort of stood there. And I thought, when I was younger, and I was one of those twigs in the ground, I was so mad at myself for not being one of those tall, majestic trees. It used to frustrate me so much. But really what I should have been doing was trying to get enough nutrients from the soil and trying to get enough sunlight and get enough water and actually looking after my needs, because if you do that and if you foster yourself enough, you're going to become one of those trees. That's not the thing that's in doubt. It's about how strong your foundations are going to be when you get there. So, there were times when, there was a strong wind and I'd be, waving about because I didn't put those strong foundations in place. So if I was going to change anything, it would be to look, I knew all of that stuff would come and I was going to be one of those trees one day, but I should have focused on nurturing my own environment first.
Nice one. I think that's loving the analogies. There's a boat, there's tree, there's lots of natural analogies. This is awesome. I think something just to pick up on that, which is quite interesting around part of what I'm hearing that's a bit of a narrative is being okay with where you are right now and being comfortable that you may not be the person or the kind of the skills, the capability that you think all the other kind of more successful people are, and kind of almost kind of not necessarily beating yourself up all the time, and then having that kind of self-critical voice that you potentially have, and all of us have constantly, where there's this Emily that's constantly saying, oh, you got to do more, you're not working hard enough, and there's this occasional other Emily that says, you're doing okay, keep keep at it. So I'd love to hear from each of you. How do you kind of tame that, if you will, or what do you do to kind of, I guess, maybe nurture more of that kind of supportive self versus, the critical self that's always that kind of nibbing at the background?
I think it comes down to what you're measuring. What are you measuring your success as? And if you can make it something that's important to you, then any small progress is great progress. So I count my success in number of people that I've brightened their day. If I've made them smile, that's my success. And it grows from there. So I know that every day can be a successful day with that foundation, no matter what else goes on. And I think building on that, now how many people can I make more confident with money? How many people can I take the fear out of their finances? It grows from there. But if you come back to that core of try to measure yourself based on something really simple that's important to you, it's really easy to be proud of yourself, I suppose.
So for me, I see personal growth, I'm a big one of pushing myself outside my comfort zone. I think that growth happens when you're outside your comfort zone. If you're inside your comfort zone, you tend to go round and round in circles. But if you can push yourself outside your comfort zone, again, staying true to yourself, as long as you're not compromising your own ideals and your own morals, then stepping outside that boundary is a safe place to be. It might not feel safe, but it's safe because you've still got that inner peace that you know that you're only doing what you're comfortable with anyway. You're just doing it a little bit more risky type, sort of.
I think sometimes if you can externalize the voice, the critical voice, and you go, would I talk to my friend like that? Sometimes we're so mean to ourselves, and if you can just hear it in a different context, you'll be able to realize, whoa, like, what am I even saying? What is the point of this voice? Since when is that how we garner good outcomes from ourselves? By being mean, being cruel, being critical. So if you can just pop out of it for a moment and go, did I really just say that? Like, did I just say that? And to myself, wow. Like, imagine if somebody else spoke to me that way. I'd be so done. So sometimes you got to just think, is this hurting me or is it helping me? Especially when learning. Often you can have your learning experience where you go from not knowing something to knowing something, and then your emotions are like this the whole time. And you think they're so related, but they're not. And the thing that's stopping you from learning is your feelings about learning that thing. Not that you can't learn it, it's that you think you can't. And that's what's actually getting in the way. So the other thing I'd say is set aside time to think those things and feel those feelings, because they are there and we do need to work through them, but make sure it's not while you're trying to do something. Give yourself the time to think about it.
I was actually reading another podcast that was talking about a really similar story, which is if you took out that kind of critical voice and that was the boss that you were working for, how long would you work for them? I thought that was such a great example of, like if I had a leader or had a manager that was constantly talking at me like that, I probably would have left them in half a day. And yet sometimes we let that be the boss for a long time. Yeah, phenomenal. This one's a really interesting one. So for the world, in the world of innovation and entrepreneurship, we often talk about this idea of bias towards action. You're constantly, when you look at an opportunity, you look at a problem, you're always thinking, well, what can I do? What's a piece of ask that I can kind of put out into the world to say, yep, I've identified a problem. I'm looking for some help to build a solution in this space. Now, we've got this wonderful opportunity of this audience who are here, who've chosen to be here, hopefully, and also people who are tuning in, who have chosen to spend the morning here. If with the opportunity of having their attention, what is your one ask of them?
I think my one ask would be around International Women's Day specifically, and I would ask that I get very frustrated with the perception that International Women's Day is about telling men what they're doing wrong. I don't know if any of you have come up against those attitudes when you go to an International Women's Day event and people poo-poo it. That's not what it's about at all. It's about every individual, regardless of gender, holding each other accountable. And I think why that's particularly important for women is that we have to actually hold ourselves to account and to be courageous. And so my one ask would be, please push yourself as you would push someone else that you believe in, your best friend that you believe in, your daughter that you believe in, and just try and be your own cheerleader just today, and then maybe just for the rest of the week, and then see how it feels. And if you want to keep going beyond that, please do. Yeah.
Ditto. Just a step up to the plate, I suppose. If there's a challenge in front of you that you think you might be able to tackle but you're unsure about it, just step up to the plate. Just give it a go. Take it head on and ask for help when you need it. And if you see anybody else stepping up to their plate, then give them that little bit of a push, because we probably don't encourage each other enough as women and men, even though it's not International Men's Day. We're only as good as you're the sum of the 5 people around you, is what I think. So if there's somebody that I see that I'm not particularly fond of, I look at the people around them. If they've got 5 people around them that are good people, there must be something there that I'm not seeing, something that I'm clashing with. And those 5 people are helping that person along. I might not see it, but they're helping that person along. So I'm only as good as the 5 people that I surround myself with, and they're the people that are helping me step up to the plate. So be one of those 5 people for somebody that you can see is on the cusp of making that decision. I suppose that's, I don't know.
Yeah, let's go with that. You took all the good things. Yeah. One of my favourite authors and feminists, Clementine Ford, has an amazing podcast called the Big Sister Hotline, where she gives advice to people that ring in. It's basically like Dolly Doctor, but 21st century. But one of the things that she's always said is that if you take a general interest in the lives of women and minorities, you won't have to try to care. So if there's anybody here I feel like I'm preaching to the choir really, but if there's anybody who in your life who's like, I just don't get why this is a big deal, just encourage them to care about their friends, take an interest in the lives of the people around them, and then suddenly the issues that are important to them will become important to you. So if you're like, how do I spark this passion in others? I think if you just have a general interest and you care about women, minorities, and other people who are experiencing hardship, you won't have to try so hard to convince them that it's important, to convince them to care. So foster relationships, invest in your friendships, and the rest will come.
Amazing. Look at that. Excellent. See, that's my ask, and it delivered. So 3 things, if I can just summarise and make sure we all can take away and think about this or have a go at doing this today or maybe for the rest of the week. The first thing is be your own cheerleader. Second thing is step up to the plate, or if you do see other people stepping up to their plate, encourage them and support them along the way. And third, take an interest in those around you. So of the 3 asks, I invite you all to share with us. We'll be getting some networking and some conversation, and invite you to have a try on these 3 behaviours or actions for the rest of today. So with that, really thank you so much for your attention, being here this morning. I hope this has been both inspiring. I was incredibly inspired, but also a practical morning as we celebrate International Women's Day and Women's Week. And hopefully you get something, a little bit of a golden nugget that you get to take away for the rest of today and the rest of the week. Thank you very much.